Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as you all know, I often share with you insights into my busy little mind and how I often find myself thinking about the most random of topics. And after thinking about how technology is powering electric cars and the battery capacity and how it can be increased to make these vehicles more successful in the future, I found myself discovering a company called Solid Power. Now, thankfully, I do have this Daily Tech Podcast to channel my curiosity, where I try to learn a thing or two each and every day. But I invite you all along to do the same. Now, Solid Power is an industry-leading developer of all solid-state rechargeable batteries for electric vehicles. And those all-solid-state batteries provide greater energy density, which translates to a greater runtime per charge, or in the case of an electric vehicle, a greater range from that fully charged battery. And on top of a 50 to 100% increase in energy density compared to those other rechargeable batteries out there, Solid Power's all-solid-state batteries are aiming to replace the liquid electrolyte in a conventional lithium battery with a highly stable solid ion conducting material. And as a result, Solid Power's all-solid-state batteries are inherently more stable across the broad temperature range, while also enabling more efficient cell and pack designs. But that is as far as my knowledge goes. So I invited Douglas Campbell, CEO of Solid Power, to come on and share his insights on where this technology is heading. So come and join me in conversation with Douglas now. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Doug. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me. So I'm Doug Campbell. I am the co-founder and CEO of Solid Power. Solid Power is a Colorado-based developer and manufacturer of all solid-state rechargeable batteries, which are primarily focused on future vehicle electrification.
And for people just hearing about Solid Power for the first time, can you just expand on the kind of problems that you're solving with Solid Power and using technology?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at it from the perspective of a consumer, as a consumer considers whether or not an electric vehicle is appropriate for them, by and large, the main concerns that they're going to run into, as we hear in the media, are things like range anxiety. So how far will this vehicle travel on a given charge? And then, how expensive is the vehicle? Today, it's fair to say that most EVs are a bit pricier than traditional gas combustion engines. And that's precisely what we're addressing, because that's all addressed by really the battery system. The battery is the single most expensive component of the EV. And of course, the battery itself, the capacity and energy density is what determines the range, how far that vehicle travels on a given charge. And so what we're doing at Solid Power is really developing truly advanced battery systems that provide a significant improvement in that energy, which directly translates into the range of the vehicle. And then actually getting to reduce costs by doing things like significantly improving safety, enabling things like elimination of pack cooling, which is a major cost driver. So in effect, you could think of us as addressing kind of performance and cost of future EVs.
And I'm curious, what is the story behind Solid Power? Where did the inspiration come from and how was it born?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really born out of some research at the University of Colorado Boulder. I got connected with two professors here at the University of Colorado that were wrapping up some research on solid-state batteries. Showed some novel reversibility or rechargeability on some interesting cathode chemistries, and they demonstrated that it appeared to be unique to sort of that solid state phase. So in other words, no liquid in the system. And so roughly around the 2012 timeframe, I got engaged. They wanted to sort of had a particular passion for seeing a business kind of form around this research. And, the rest is history. We executed our license agreement with the university in 2013 and then physically left the the university and moved into our own facility essentially right around the start of 2014. And since then, we've just been advancing the tech, advancing the manufacturing, et cetera.
And here in 2020, then, who are Solid Power's target consumers?
Yeah, it's by and large, it is future OEM platforms. So we work with a bunch of different OEMs. What's public is our partnerships with Ford and BMW. So I guess you could say ultimately our target is tomorrow's consumer, tomorrow's purchaser of electric vehicles.
So what are the benefits of an all-solid-state battery compared to, let's say, the conventional lithium batteries? Are there any downsides, any limitations to where it can be integrated?
Yeah, well, certainly in engineering and science, as I like to say, nothing's free. So there are certainly some potential disadvantages. I'll start with the advantages. So as I said before, energy and price being the big driver in the EV market. So solid state, simple definition is you're replacing the liquid electrolyte in traditional lithium-ion batteries with a solid ion conducting material. It's really that simple. We at Solid Power kind of view solid state as a platform, and it's a platform that enables various new design features, such as use of much higher capacity electrodes like metallic lithium as an anode. That's precisely what we're doing. And that's really the pathway that we are getting to much higher energy, in anywhere between 50 to 100% improvement in the energy over today's lithium-ion. And then, of course, because you have eliminated that volatile, flammable liquid electrolyte, you essentially have gotten rid of the spark that leads to that combustion event, sort of associated with thermal runaway. Not to say that our cells won't fail under abuse conditions like penetration or overcharge, but they do so in a very, very benign, non-catastrophic manner. And that's fantastic because, as I like to say, lithium-ion is a perfectly safe chemistry, but it has to be engineered to be safe. And engineering is analogous to cost. And so if you can get away from a lot of those needs for engineering safety into the system, that dramatically reduces cost. And so that's precisely what we are doing at Solid Power.
And who do you see as your biggest competitors? Because I've got to be honest, I'm not too familiar with the landscape out there. So who are your biggest competitors?
Well, I'll start from a very big picture standpoint. Yep. The number one competitor is today's lithium-ion. Yeah. And what I mean by that is not only do we have to compete on performance, but we have to compete on cost. And the cost reductions that the lithium-ion industry has realized over the last several years have been impressive. On a dollars per kilowatt hour basis, you have seen over the last decade orders of magnitude reduction in the cost of lithium-ion. And it is quite impressive. And that's ultimately what we have to compete with. We have to come in and be cost competitive with lithium-ion, and not today, but tomorrow. That used to be for us a very, very significant risk. But today we're feeling much more bullish. And that's primarily because we have really, by and large, retired manufacturing costs. And that's because we are manufactured in a manner that looks virtually identical to today's lithium-ion, and that we are increasingly more bullish that some of the new lithium-containing precursor materials that are in our supply chain can be brought down in cost rather considerably just by achieving scale. So that's where I jokingly say, really, our competition is today's lithium-ion.
And if we zoom out and look at that bigger picture, at what stage is all solid-state batteries development currently at?
Yeah, I mean, compared to today's lithium-ion, it's still quite early stage. Yeah. We're certainly one of the leaders, and we're one of the leaders because we're one of the few groups that are doing things at scale. So in other words, if you were to go to a battery conference and sit through presentations, you'd see some really impressive results. But if you kind of look behind the curtain, so to speak, everything's still lab scale. Very small cells, onesies and twosies. Certainly, we were no different several years ago, especially when we were established. But what really makes us unique is we are doing things at scale. We are building large cells. We're building lots of them. We're doing it on a megawatt hour scale production line. So that's quite impressive. But again, still in comparison to lithium-ion, which of course is well into the tens or hundreds of gigawatt hour scale, there's still a lot of development that needs to occur. But what's so exciting about us is that it's moving forward for us, it's not really science developments, it's really manufacturing and scale. So we're getting there, but certainly, if, I wouldn't encourage any of your listeners to go and sell their lithium-ion battery stocks just yet.
And we will have a lot of startup founders listening as well as business leaders. But for those people, I mean, what has been the most challenging technological aspect of your journey so far, would you say?
Oh, gosh. How much time do we have on the podcast? Let me start by saying developing a new battery system is not trivial. Okay. Yeah. Developing, an advisor once told me, the community has gotten quite comfortable in coming up with ways to move, new ways to move electrons from point A to point B. You guys are coming up with a new way to move ions from point A to point B. That is a big friggin' deal. So I do not want to trivialize that anytime you are developing a new technology to do just that, that it is going to be easy. It certainly will not be easy. And so we've had a number of technical hurdles that have faced us over the years. But it has, by and large, we've continued to track in the right direction. But at the end of the day, battery innovations do not come about overnight. It only comes through a lot of effort, persistent effort, and it comes gradually.
And like you said, this technology is not going to happen overnight. But when do you think we're going to see them hit the market?
Well, it's going to be market dependent. I have been up till now on this podcast talking exclusively about the electric vehicle market. Yeah. That's actually probably the hardest market, both in terms of the performance requirements. They're quite aggressive, and of course the cost targets are equally aggressive. That being said, there are a number of other markets, much smaller than electric vehicle, but you could think of things like aerospace, things like drones, where the performance requirements are quite a bit easier, not nearly as aggressive as EVs. The cost sensitivity is not nearly as high as it is for EVs. And I'd venture to say you could see commercialization really within 2 to 3 years in those markets. Pertaining to electric vehicles for us, I think before 2025 is probably overly aggressive. But the latter half of this decade, absolutely. That's what we're working towards, is vehicle introduction and mass adoption thereafter.
And we are, of course, in a period of uncertainty at the moment. So any kind of future crystal ball gazing is going to be guesswork to a certain degree. But what does your future vision of the energy storage market look like? Could you possibly share how you see things panning out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, right now we're in this sort of COVID-19 crisis, and it is a crisis, and a lot of people are suffering right now, and my heart certainly goes out to them. As I look at the big picture, though, I don't see any change in terms of this particular industry and pushing towards electrification. I mean, it needs to happen, and it is going to happen. This unfortunate situation that we're in, I view it as hopefully just a speed bump in our road towards clean energy and clean transportation. Frankly speaking, that need cannot and will not go away. And I'm actually quite pleased at the response that we're getting from our strategic partners. Certainly their balance sheets are taking it on the chin right now, but they get it. They get it that long term, they're not wavering from the roadmap of pushing towards an electric future.
And for anyone that would just like to find out a little bit more information about the kind of work that you're doing at Solid Power and how things are evolving there, what's the best way to find that information, or even continue the conversation we started today by or by contacting your team? What's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the easiest one is just going to our website, solidpowerbattery.com. But also, we're quite prolific in giving presentations at technical conferences. We view it as really a key part of the ecosystem is, disseminating some of the work that we're doing. And a lot of that can be found just through a simple internet search. But yeah, the easiest way is just go straight to our website.
Well, you guys at Solid Power do have this reputation as being an industry-leading developer of all solid-state rechargeable batteries for electric vehicles. And I think that is an area that we're getting more and more excited about, especially during this pandemic, because I think we're starting to question sustainability now and looking for alternatives. And the fact that these batteries will offer greater runtime per charge, or in the case of an electric vehicle, greater range from a fully charged battery. That is the big game changer moment that will make more and more people adopt this technology. So a big thank you for taking the time to come on and share that story with me today. Thanks again, Doug.
Absolutely. We feel like we're fighting the good fight, so to speak.
What I loved about today's guest is he's led the company through early stage development, including high risk, high return research to the federal government, to ongoing joint development partnerships with big names such as BMW and Ford, through to a successful 20 million plus Series A funding round, to the company's current phase of achieving production at scale at the launch of Solid Power's roll-to-roll production facility. And I think that was in Q3 last year. And Campbell has secured numerous high-profile customers and strategic investors for Solid Power, including BMW, Hyundai Motor Corporation, Samsung, Solvay, among many others. So I don't know about you guys listening, but I enjoyed learning more about Solid Power, what it is, what problems they're setting out to solve, but also the story behind Solid Power and where the inspiration came from and how it was born. But that's it from me. The microphone is now passed over to you all, wherever you're listening in the world, because this is the part where I invite you to contact me with your questions, tips, insights, thoughts, anything at all. And you can do all that and more by emailing me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk. And my book, TED Talks Innovation, is available on Amazon to pre-order, which is released on May the 5th. And that's great TED Talks Innovation. You can find more information about that on my website or Amazon, of course. But other than that, I'll see you again tomorrow, bright and early. And a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.